Chapter 3, Beyond the Shiny Object, Illuminating the Path, Theoretical Foundations for Healing Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse. To deepen our understanding of the framework for treating male survivors of sexual abuse, we must first delve into the profound impact of relationships on both the harm caused by interpersonal trauma and the potential for healing. By exploring various theoretical models, particularly trauma theory, gender theory, and attachment theory, and understanding sexual development, we can understand the nuanced dynamics of human connection, which are essential to both the wounds inflicted by trauma and the pathways to recovery. In doing so, we unlock the shiny object within these concepts, those elements that reveal new insights and possibility of healing. Trauma theory will serve as the cornerstone of our exploration, illuminating the psychological, emotional, and relational complexities that male survivors endure. The shiny object in the context is the recognition that both the biological response and cognitive distortions resulting from trauma are, in fact, psychologically normal adaptations to the individual's experience. These responses, while adapted to the survivor's specific context, are often perceived as maladaptive by society because the trauma-induced experiences are abnormal to the culture at large. By understanding how trauma reshapes the mind and spirit, distorting perceptions of self and others, we gain the power to help survivors rewrite their narratives, transforming what society views as maladaptive into a source of strength and resilience. The shift is in perspective. The shift in perspective allows for a deeper, more compassionate approach to healing, where the very mechanisms that once seemed destructive are reframed as natural, albeit misunderstood, survival strategies. Gender theory offers another critical facet to explore, revealing how societal norms and expectations shape male survivors' identity influences their interaction. The shiny object in gender theory is the opportunity to challenge and dismantle the rigid constructs that often inhibit male survivors from fully expressing their vulnerabilities. This is particularly important in a therapeutic landscape where the majority of therapists are women, and much of the research and societal understandings tends to frame sexual trauma predominantly as a female experience. These dynamics can create additional barriers for male survivors who may feel that their experiences are misunderstood or invalidated. By addressing these gender dynamics, therapists can craft interventions that resonate more deeply with the male survivor's unique experiences, fostering a space where they can reclaim their identity on their own terms and navigate their healing journey without the constraints of traditional gender expectations. Attachment theory opens a window into the multifaceted nature of human relationships, emphasizing the profound impact of early relational experiences on individuals' development. The shiny object here is the understanding that while trauma occurs within the context of relationship, it is within relationships that healing must also occur. This realization goes beyond merely understanding attachment styles. It involves recognizing how these attachment patterns are shaped and influenced by the interplay of gender and trauma narratives. By examining attachment with the broader context, we gain the tools to not only understand how trauma disrupts relationships, but also how we can rebuild trust, intimacy, and security in the lives of survivors. This approach empowers us to support survivors in forming healthy, fulfilling relationships, knowing that the path to healing is deeply embedded in the relational connection they rebuilt. For male survivors of sexual abuse, understanding the intersection of trauma, gender, and attachment theory is crucial to their healing process. Sexuality is often the entry point that brings many male survivors into treatment, as the trauma they've endured has profoundly violated and distorted their sexual development. Gender theory gives us a framework for understanding societal expectations placed on men, particularly in terms of sexuality, which can compound feelings of shame and confusion. These survivors are often caught in the conflict between what society expects of them as men and the internalized effects of their trauma. This tension complicates their sense of identity and their ability to navigate relationships, especially intimate ones. A comprehensive understanding of sexual development enables therapists to recognize how interpersonal sexual trauma has disrupted the survivor's sexual template, impacting not only their sexuality, but also their overall identity and relationship. The shiny object in this context represents the surface level behaviors or issues, like sexual compulsivity, avoidance, or risky behaviors. That may appear to be the problem, but are actually coping mechanisms tied to deeper unresolved trauma. The real work lies in exploring how the survivor's sexual development was interrupted and distorted by the trauma, and helping them rewrite what is normal for them, free from societal shame and judgment. Shame and judgment are often internalized due to societal and cultural expectations about what it means to be a man. These expectations created additional layers of pressure for male survivors, leading them to believe they are somehow broken or defective because of their trauma. This process of healing, therefore, involves unpacking these internalized beliefs and helping survivors understand that their reactions, whether it be sexual behaviors, avoidance, or emotional dysregulation, are natural responses to the trauma they have experienced. These responses served as an adaptive function at the time of the abuse, but they may no longer serve them in their present lives. Understanding trauma within the lens of attachment theory further helps male survivors realize how their relationships, especially intimate ones, have been shaped by the abuse. Many male survivors struggle with forming secure attachments because their trauma has been impacted by their ability to trust and feel safe within others. The men may avoid intimacy or alternatively engage in compulsive sexual behavior as a way to manage their unresolved trauma. Educating survivors about how to recognize patterns in their relationships and give them tools to start healing from these attachment wounds. Therapists play a pivotal role in guiding survivors through this complex process. By helping them explore the specific way their sexual development has been disrupted, therapists also allow survivors to reconnect with their sense of self in a way that is both empowering and affirming. The goal is to help survivors reclaim their sexual identity and their relationship, recognizing that their previous coping mechanisms, however destructive they may seem, were once essential for survival. Through a lens of curiosity rather than judgment, therapists can help survivors challenge the societal and cultural pressures that have shaped their views of masculinity, sexuality, and self-worth. The shift away from judgment creates a space for survivors to explore their trauma without the burden of shame, allowing them to better understand how their trauma has shaped their behavior and identities. Ultimately, the goal is to create a framework for healing that acknowledges the unique impacts of their trauma while freeing them from distortions imposed by shame and external judgment. Through this process, survivors can begin to make sense of their experiences and reclaim their sexuality, relationships, and sense of self in a way that aligns with their true identity rather than the distorted narrative that was imposed on them. As we explore the concept of the shiny object, it's essential to understand the profound impact of trauma. Trauma theory, which originated in the field of psychology, has been applied across various disciplines such as sociology, anthropology, and history. This theory is grounded in the understanding that trauma can have a significant and lasting impact on an individual's mental health and physical health. Function of behavior. Trauma theories identify several common reactions to trauma, including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, dissociation, other mental health challenges like depression and anxiety. It highlights the influence of social factors such as gender, race, and class on the experience effects of trauma. Trauma theory underscores the importance of social support and the critical role of trauma-informed approach in aiding recovery. This approach emphasizes the need for compassion, empathetic care, and acknowledges the impact of trauma and actively works to address its effect on both individuals and communities. There are three essential components to PTSD that are crucial for anyone who experiences trauma to understand: avoidance, compulsive repetition, and anxiety. By grasping these three core principles, it becomes easier to recognize these behaviors and, if one chooses, explores how to manage them effectively. It also is important to recognize that all these behaviors serve as a function. There is always a reason why we do what we do. The primary and often most critical lens through which we should examine this function is the safety and protection. Safety and protection encompasses both physical and psychological well-being. Therefore, when someone experiences trauma, these three components, avoidance, compulsive repetition, and anxiety, often serve as compensatory mechanisms to maintain a sense of safety. In the mental health field, behaviors associated with PTSD are often pathologized, largely because our mental health system is rooted in the medical model that tends to label anything outside the norm as sick or disordered. Consequently, these behaviors are frequently viewed as pathological. However, by exploring these three functions through the lens of safety, we can better understand how they might actually serve a protective role for the individual in the context of the trauma. As we continue to explore the reactions to trauma through a functional lens, it is crucial to recognize that one of the significant aspects of trauma is the cognitive distortions it creates. These distortions often reinforce the perceptions that one remains in an unsafe situation, making the maintenance of symptoms like avoidance, compulsive repetition, and anxiety feel necessary for survival. This is especially challenging in the context of interpersonal trauma, where the offender may use the relationship to manipulate and exploit the survivor, further deepening these distortions. For survivors of relational trauma, these distortions are intricately tied to their experiences within the relationship, making the risk of taking the leap of faith in the recovery process extraordinarily daunting. This leap is essential for healing, as it involves trust again and stepping into vulnerability within the safety of the relationship. Therefore, it's vital for anyone in a relationship with the survival of interpersonal trauma to understand how they contribute to healing environment. When I refer to recovery, I mean no longer meeting the criteria of PTSD. However, it is important to acknowledge that because the need for safety is literally embedded in our DNA, we will continue to have reactions and triggers in certain situations. The key differences in recovery is the ability to slow down and pace ourselves, recognizing these triggers and seek validation, whether through another trusted person or by identifying additional data sources to verify that the reality of what we're experiencing. This awareness and ability to manage triggers are critical components to long-term healing. I strongly believe that full recovery from interpersonal trauma is possible, and the individual is motivated and supported within a relationship that is safe enough to encourage the leap of faith. While Beyond the Shiny Object is primarily written for therapists, the principles are valuable for anyone seeking to show up effectively in relationships, offering the potential to be a source of healing for those who are experiencing relational trauma.